The links are below to my new true crime channel. The next video is on the recent case of Dylan Rounds, so check it out if you're interested. Now let's get to the stories. On March 9th of 2008, at approximately 2:30 p.m., I was dispatched to a possible assault incident. Upon my arrival, the victim and her daughter were standing outside their residence. After speaking with them, I learned that while the mother and daughter were on a walk, a strange man grabbed this woman's daughter and was trying to pull her away from the mother. The mother, who always carries pepper spray, sprayed him and then they ran back home. The mother and daughter were sitting on their porch watching this man. The mother had a shotgun in hand. The man just stood there on the street staring at them on the porch until I arrived. When he heard me arrive, he ran across a field and started walking down Highway 70. I got into my patrol car and drove in the direction of Highway 70. As I approached a curve in the road about a quarter mile from where I initially met the victims, I saw a male subject walking on the east side of the road. He was wearing dark clothes and had his head down, looking at something he held in his hands as he walked. He matched the description of the man that assaulted this woman's daughter. I pulled my patrol car onto the shoulder of the roadway and turned on my emergency lights. When he noticed me approaching him from behind, he stopped walking and turned to face me as I pulled up alongside him, about 10 feet away. He kept his hands hidden inside his jacket pockets as he stood there staring at me through his dark sunglasses. His hair was also long enough to cover part of his ears. I got out of my patrol car and told him to turn around with his hands behind his head. He didn't respond and continued to stare at me through his dark sunglasses. I then noticed he had a small scar under his right eye, which ran from his eye down to his cheek and towards his chin. I asked him again to turn around, and that's when he took his sunglasses off and started speaking in what sounded like Latin. I was so startled by his speaking in Latin that I quickly reached for my weapon, which was holstered on my right hip. As soon as I started to reach for it, he took off running into the woods. I followed him into the woods, and about 30 yards in, I see this small pile of rocks on the ground next to a tree. There were markings on some of the rocks, which appeared to be symbols or letters. I also noticed that this man had a backpack with him. He had dropped his backpack when he took off running. He ran so fast that he completely disappeared into the woods. I spent 30 minutes trying to track him down, but I couldn't. I returned to where he dropped his backpack and looked inside to find what was in it. In his backpack was a white robe, 30 feet of rope twine, 3 knives, and a copy of the Satanic Bible. This was by far the strangest call I've been on. I've never heard about this man again after that. We sent a patrol car to check on the woman's residence a few times a day for 3 weeks after the incident. I'm a former police officer, and I had several strange experiences in my life, but the strangest by far was when I went camping with my family. I was on a camping trip with my family at a campground in New York State. It's located in the Adirondack Mountains near Lake Harris. The campground is located in a valley. Surrounding the valley are rolling mountains. There's only one way into the valley and one way out. The campground itself consists of 2 parts, an upper part and a lower part. The upper part has cabins that can be rented out for the summer, and some campsites with RV hookups. The lower part is strictly tent camping only. No RVs are allowed there. It's also very secluded with a lot of trees to block your view of other campsites, or the road leading in and out of the campground. We were there for 3 days during the summer of 2018. On one of those nights, around 1 a.m., on July 25th, I woke up to use the bathroom. As soon as I opened the tent door, I could hear something sniffing and breathing heavily right outside of our tent. It sounded like it was just inches away from me, so naturally I froze out of fear and curiosity as to what it could be. After about 10 seconds or so, it moved off into the woods and all went quiet again. After a few minutes had passed, my wife woke up and asked me what was going on. I told her that I woke up to use the restroom, and that's when I heard this breathing of an animal really close by. The next morning when we woke up, we found several footprints in the dirt that were very strange looking. They were long like a dog or wolves, but they had 5 toes instead of 4 like normal canines do. The prints also showed whatever made them was much heavier than any normal animal would be. Whatever left those tracks weighed at least 300 pounds, if not more. I've seen all kinds of animal tracks in my life as a police officer, and these were by far one of the strangest that I've ever seen. I've also spent countless nights camping throughout my life, and have never once encountered anything strange like this before, or since either. After seeing these tracks, I became even more convinced that what we heard was some kind of strange creature rather than an actual dog or a wolf. I was working the midnight shift and had just finished my nightly patrol of our local cemetery. As I was driving, dispatch called out a break-in at a residence on Maple Street. The reporting party stated that she could hear someone walking around her house but couldn't see anyone. She did say it sounded like they were inside of her house though. We sent 1 car to the scene, and I headed over myself to assist. When I arrived at the scene, our officer was standing outside his car with his spotlight, scanning the area around the house. It was a small 2-story house with a large porch that wrapped around the front and one side of the house. The porch had white columns on each corner and had a large swing in the middle of it. He told me that he had been inside checking things out when he heard what sounded like someone walking downstairs right behind him. When he turned to look, though, it was as if whoever it was had simply vanished without a trace. He said he checked everywhere but couldn't find anything or anyone who could have made those sounds. After about 20 minutes of searching ourselves with no results, we decided to call it a night. About 2 hours later, though, we received another call from this same residence reporting yet another break-in attempt by someone trying to pry open a window. Once again, our officer could find no one around the house, and everything appeared to be locked up tight, except for an upstairs window that had been opened. The owner of the residence claimed she heard it open, and she wasn't the one opening it. We went upstairs to take a look at the open window, and we closed it. And just as we did that, a large rock came flying through the window. It missed our officer by inches. I looked outside in the backyard, and there's no way that that rock could have been thrown by anybody. She had a fenced-in backyard, and there was no one out there. It was a large fenced-in yard with really nothing in it, no trees or anything. The back of the house faced the cemetery I patrolled earlier that night. So there's no way anyone could have thrown that rock without us seeing them. We asked the owner if she had anyone she could stay with for the night, and she said her sister lived a few blocks away. We advised her to go stay with her sister for the night, and we would watch over things until daylight. The officer and I stood out the front of the house until about 4 a.m. when we decided to call it a night. The next day, we had several officers come out to assist us in searching the area for any clues or evidence of what had happened. We found nothing, though, except for the rock which had been thrown through the window. It was about 4 inches in diameter and weighed at least a pound, if not more. I never believed in ghosts or spirits until I was on that call. I can tell you that they are real. This happened in 2014. I was on patrol on Highway 99 in the middle of the night. It was about 2:30 a.m. and I had been driving for several hours and was getting tired. I decided to pull over at a rest stop just off the highway so that I could get some coffee and wake up before continuing my patrol. There were no other cars there except for mine, so I went inside the building to get my coffee. It was a small 1-story building with a bathroom in the back and an area to sit and have coffee or eat at the front. I went inside and there was nobody there. I got my coffee and came back out to the car. I was sitting there and started to drink my coffee when behind the rest stop building I hear some strange noise. It was a cross between a howl and a moan. I thought it was weird, but I didn't think much of it. Then about 5 minutes later, I hear the same noise again, only louder. At that point, I got out of my car to see what was going on. I walked behind the building and I saw nothing. Then I heard the noise again. This time it was coming from across the highway. It was a small highway with only 2 lanes, no divider, and sparse traffic. There were trees on both sides of the highway about 75 yards apart. I heard the noise again and it was coming from the tree line on my side of the highway. At this point, I really couldn't tell where it was coming from. It seemed to keep moving, or maybe there was a weird echo in that area. I walked over to where I could see into the trees and basically saw nothing. There was a small clearing there and I could hear some moving around in the brush. It sounded like 2 animals fighting, but I really couldn't see anything. Then, all of a sudden, whatever it was came running out of the brush and right across the highway where I could get a good look at it. What I saw was huge, bigger than any bear that you've ever seen. It had long black hair and it was matted and stringy looking. It had a strange gait, kind of like a horse, but not quite. When it got to the highway, it stopped and looked at me for several seconds before turning and running back into the brush on the other side of the highway. I'm not sure what this thing was, but it looked like a cross between a bear and a big dog. We monitored that area for the next 3 weeks for any strange activity. We received 3 calls from residents in that area about a strange animal that was walking around on their property. We never found anything and the calls stopped after that 3 weeks. I don't know what this thing was, but it wasn't normal. It wasn't a bear because they don't have that type of gait. And it wasn't any kind of known big cat because it was just too big to be a mountain lion or any other known cat in North America. I had this one call in 2006 where I was called to check on a large animal at a residence. The call came in as an unknown animal and the person reporting it said it looked like a werewolf. We get all kinds of calls. You can't imagine the things that we have to respond to. It was around 10 p.m. when I got this call and I decided to head over to check it out. When I arrived, the couple was out on their front porch and the wife was holding a large flashlight. The husband said he had been watching this strange thing for about 10 minutes and it was still out there in their yard. I asked him to describe what he saw and he said it looked like a werewolf. He said it had grayish brown hair and pointed ears. I thought to myself, are you kidding me? But he seemed very serious about what he was saying. So I asked him if he wanted to go out there and check it out with me. But he declined and stayed on the porch. I got my spotlight and drew my weapon because I didn't know what I was going to run into. But I know it's not what this guy said. I walked around to the back of the house. It was a ranch-style house, and the yard was enclosed by a wood fence about 6 feet tall, and there was a gate at the driveway entrance. There were trees to the north of the home and an open field to the south that ran for several hundred yards before it reached some more homes. I walked around to the back of the house and didn't see anything at first, but then caught movement in my light beam where the tree line met the fence. I saw what appeared to be a large creature jump over this 6-foot fence and into the woods in a single bound. I didn't get a look at the front of this thing, I just saw the back of it for a split second. But it was enough for me to know that something like this isn't native to the area. I've never seen anything that large leap over a 6-foot fence like that. I decided to call in for backup because we needed a few more officers out here to scan the area for this thing. We started checking the area with flashlights and dogs, but we never found anything. We searched until midnight that night, and I was off the next day, so I went back out there to check on things. I spoke to the couple, and they said they didn't see anything after we arrived. This thing must have been passing through because that was the last that we ever heard of it. We still talk about it at the station and refer to it as the Wolfman.